Okay, this is the Gun Use in Fiction panel. I am Julie Frost, your friendly neighborhood moderator, and I will allow my panelists to introduce themselves.
I am Michael Kupari. I used to be a firearm instructor with Larry Correia. He's a lesser-known author that I'm trying to get his name out there. To that end, I wrote 2 books with him, trying to help his career along. I have a total of 12 years in the military. I was an explosive ordnance disposal technician in the Air Force for 6 years. I've been to Afghanistan. As I said before, I was a firearm instructor, so I know a little bit. And I've been on internet gun boards since like 2000, so I've heard all of the arguments.
That's actually how I met him, was I was moderating an internet gun forum. Yeah, I'm Larry Correia. I'm a lesser-known author. I've written a couple books. They've done okay. So on the gun panel, I used to own a machine gun store. I was a Title VII SOT, which is a machine gun suppressor guy. I was a Utah concealed weapons instructor for about 10 years. And for a few years, I was actually the busiest concealed weapons instructor in the state of Utah. I taught all the Cabela's classes and stuff. I've written for a bunch of gun magazines, and I've written gun control articles. You can guess which way I swing on the gun control issue.
You got on TV for that one.
Yeah, I've been on Fox News talking about guns. I've been on Huckabee. And so, yeah, I know a little bit about guns. I like them. They are nice.
I'm Scott Bascom. I collect antiques, and some of them happen to be guns. I also like modern firearms. They go boom very nicely. For those of you in YouTube land, my apologies. You can't smell the Cosmoline or come up and see the demonstration models I brought. I don't have any actual guns. I just have, for example, a bayonet used to kill both Soviets and Nazis, which should make you happy. Deep inside.
Yeah, just don't get the Cosmoline on your clothing. Trust me on this one.
Yes.
Ruined a lot of clothes that way over the years.
It tastes bad.
It tastes terrible. So does brake cleaner when you're getting the Cosmoline off. That's your first thing, is always wear safety glasses when using brake cleaner to remove Cosmoline. Yeah. There's nothing like, hey, just wear that. It's fantastic. Sorry, Julie, go ahead.
So my first question for our panelists is, what does realistic gun use look like?
I would say it depends a lot from a fiction perspective.
Sure, yeah.
Well, that's kind of my bread and butter, is writing for gun nuts, and that was my original audience. And the first thing you need to ask as far as realistic gun use is think about the point of view character who's using the gun and how much they would know how to use it. And how you screw up there is if you have somebody who's a supposed expert and they are doing everything stupid and wrong. Like a lot of gun nuts, we have a really hard time watching TV.
Expand on what stupid and wrong is.
Okay, stupid and wrong. All right, do you guys watch TV? Here,
Somebody in this room watches television. Come on, thank you.
Okay, I have a pump action shotgun. I've gone into action with a pump action shotgun. Now I'm going to intimidate you and make my point. Pump, pump. Oh, now I'm saying something dramatic. Pump, pump. Blah, blah, blah. Pump, pump. In real life, it's not a dramatic action noise maker. It's actually what operates the gun. So every time you're doing that, you're ejecting a shell onto the ground.
I think you did that in a
I actually did that in a story.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I did that once in a story where the guy had no idea what he was doing, and so he pumped his shotgun for dramatic emphasis, and a shell came flying. My character laughed at him and said, next thing you're gonna, try to shoot me, turn it sideways and try to shoot me one-handed with it, and I wish you would, because that would be funny.
Another thing that can sometimes throw you off is people who are supposed to know better doing stupid things because they're just actors. They don't know any better. And in fiction, you can control that because you're not dealing with an actor, right? You can tell your character what to do, and they pretty much have to do it because you're God, right? So don't let it go to your head. So you can control that. The other thing is sometimes when someone is a novice and suddenly they're just like a suit, you get them a gun that they probably never used it for, and then suddenly they're just a badass. Shooting is hard. It is a perishable skill. I mean, Larry and I went shooting a couple months ago. And this is the first time I've been shooting in a long time, and it was embarrassing. And I used to teach people how to do this stuff, right? It is a perishable skill, and it's not exactly like riding a bicycle. So just remember that.
I mean, we weren't totally embarrassing, but when you go for, 8 years ago, you're getting paid money to shoot guns for people, and then you just go down to be a nonchalant, and you suck in comparison. It is something you got to keep practicing. I will still kick your ass. So we're still I still make a little bit of money betting people. The stupid ones, okay, so if you have somebody who's supposedly a knowledgeable character, you as the author, as a creator, you need to familiarize yourself with what these people are going to do. A knowledgeable person with a firearm, someone who actually knows how to use a gun, is going to obey the basic rules of gun safety. They're not going to point the body at themselves or anybody they don't want, or the gun at anybody that they don't want to shoot. They're going to keep their finger off the trigger. Okay, this, walking around with your finger on the trigger, is the mark of a novice. It's the mark of a dumbass. And an accident waiting to happen, and the reason I own a bulletproof vest for when I teach pistol classes. Okay, that guy. Hey, did you see how good I did? Okay, so safe direction, finger off the trigger. Professionals don't point guns at themselves. Professionals don't point guns at people for dramatic emphasis unless you intend to shoot the person or are willing to shoot the person. You basically treat your gun like you know what you're doing, and you treat it with respect like any other tool. Okay, you don't juggle chainsaws. You don't play with, it's like, my cordless drill is awesome. Okay, you wouldn't do that. It's stupid.
And for your research purposes, though, this is great because you can just go on YouTube, and there's a lot of terrible gun videos on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of terrible gun videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's videos of like Russian Spetsnaz guys throwing shovels at stuff and doing backflips and crap too. Right?
Shovel guy is
But
awesome.
if you're willing to sift through all that, you can find. Well, there's a video of me doing a New York reload, which is terribly. I did it poorly, but I did it.
It's
There are
still better
videos-
than 99%.
But there
of
are
the internet.
videos from actual firearm schools, reputable firearm schools, military training videos, things like that, where you can just get the basics down. You don't have to be an expert yourself, but you can just do a little bit of research and see how should my guy act in this scenario, how should he handle the gun. Yes.
Can we get just a little more volume?
Oh,
That's it. Yeah.
I'm going to point out something that knowledgeable people do not do is use incorrect terminology. This is a magazine, not a clip.
Just so you guys know, the reason that there's confusion is because in older bolt-action rifles, they were fed by a charger or a stripper clip. It was a little metal stamped clip that held 5 rounds together, and you would feed it into the gun's magazine. And that's where it came from. It was something you stuck into the gun to reload it,
we'll get questions later, don't worry.
and people tended, when detachable magazine firearms became prevalent, that terminology tended to just carry over, even though it's technically incorrect.
From a nuts and bolts perspective, if you yourself are not a gun nut, but you have guns in your fiction, I would really recommend that with your alpha readers, get some gun nuts. And you don't need to be an expert, you just need to fake it well. So write your action scenes, write your scenes where the guy's using his hardware, whatever, and say, is there anything in there that just is off to you? And the gun nut will say, yeah, this part is crap. Okay? Think about whatever topic you yourself are an expert on, and how much it makes you angry when a book gets your area of expertise wrong. I already talked about horse people. Horse people will come and kill you. They will burn the house down.
My mom was a horse person, they're all crazy.
They are. Horse people, you get horse stuff wrong in a book, they're getting angry. Gun people are probably second on that list. Because we're used to being abused, okay? A little bit of research goes a really long way, and a good alpha reader can help you from doing dumb stuff. Oh, and you know what? I was just thinking, Julie, can we announce stuff about you? Sure. Julie Frost here, our moderator, who is moderating this panel, neglected to mention that she is now a professional novel-selling author, who just recently got an offer for her novel, her first professional novel sale, this week. So,
Thursday.
ladies and gentlemen,
Larry was incredibly instrumental in that because he's the one who told Kevin J. Anderson to put my story at the top of his slush pile and that he would blurb it and book bomb it. So, thank you, Larry.
You're welcome. Julie's awesome. Read her book. Okay, so on gun stuff, basic terminology, readers. Okay, so Brandon Sanderson's not a gun guy, okay? But he just wrote Firefight. If you look at the thank yous of Firefight, I'm in the thank yous of that because he had gun stuff. So the nice thing about having an alpha reader who's a gun person is you can send him a question and say, I need this, this, and this, and we will send you back 8 pages of information for you to pick through and find out what works for you. He asked me a simple question, and as soon as he sent me on Gun Trivia Spiral.
You can also go to online discussion boards. The problem is online discussion boards about firearms are very often as terrible as online discussion boards about anything else, right? The internet is still the internet. There is one that you can go to that I know for a fact where you will get a good answer for your question. It's called wethearm.com. I'm a member. Larry's a member. He's not particularly active at wethearmed.com.
WEARMED.
There's a T.
Oh,
We the Armed.
We the Armed. WETHEARMED.com.
Yeah. It's free to join. It's just a typical V-bulletin discussion board. If you come on there and say, hey, I'm a novice, I'm writing a book, I have a question about this, this, and this, you will get good answers.
And they actually have a creative, it's the only gun forum I know that has a creative writing forum. It has like 200 works of Monster Hunter International fan fiction. I'm really not joking. Legally, I can't admit to reading any of it, though some of it's pretty good.
Okay, so I think everybody on this panel has a concealed carry permit.
No, not at the moment.
No.
I just went through a divorce and I felt it was not a wise idea to get my permit for Utah just because
Nah.
craziness. I have gone through everything for it.
Yeah.
You single ladies.
No.
Were you talking about your everyday carries then?
He totally just hangs out with me and Mike.
So what is the impact of carrying? What does that do to your perceptions, your awareness of what all is going on around you?
Well, the first thing, when you first start carrying, the first thing I get used to is having a metal brick digging into your side. I mean, if you're a svelte, thin person with rippling abs like me, you barely notice it. But if you got a few extra pounds, like someone else,
It's a hokey.
Or if you're a curvy girl.
yeah, women have a really hard time finding proper, because most of the concealed carry holsters and gear are meant for men, and women's hips are higher in relation to their armpits. So a lot of holsters that will work for a man is like this on a woman, right? And women's clothes tend to be less loose and flowy, which makes it hard. But your first thing you would notice is that you're paranoid. You're like, oh my God, everybody can see. Everybody can see this. Somebody's gonna call the cops. I'm gonna have to talk to the cops. When really, most people aren't really that observant. Most people have their face down on their phone all the time. I have openly carried, and no one noticed until I was buying something at a store in my security guard uniform with a .357 Magnum revolver on my hip. And there was just nothing. Then they finally looked down like, oh, hey, you got a gun. I've been in the store for like 5 minutes. So there's that, but you do become more, well, you should be more aware of your surroundings. You should be less inclined to get into any kind of a scrap or a thing. The whole, I'm just going to get into a fight to settle something. It doesn't work when you have a gun on you. So it does require a lot more responsibility on your part.
Here's one thing, if we were writing a character who's a gun person, and Mike touched on this, this is really true. We call it the color codes of awareness, and it's basically how you go through life paying attention. And most people walk through life in what we call condition white. That's completely oblivious to their surroundings. If something bad happens, they're going to get taken by surprise.
Like that guy texting.
Which one?
Now, condition yellow basically means relaxed alertness, okay? And that's what, if you are prepared for violence, that's what you're supposed to be in. If you're paying attention to your surroundings, you're not paranoid, you're not freaking out about everything, but you're just relaxed and alert. You're like, oh, what's that guy over there doing? That's weird. I'm going to look at that for a minute. That's suspicious. That's what you should do when you're driving.
It's also good to help you avoid getting hit by buses and such.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting stat for you, and I don't remember this. I let my instructor certs lapse 3 years ago, so I'm not keeping up on numbers and whatnot. But there was a thing where concealed weapons permit holders in America were less likely to be victims of violent crime than the average person. And actually, I don't believe this is because they're actually armed with a gun. It's usually because they're the kind of people that have made the choice to carry a gun, and because of that, they are the people that tend to pay more attention to their surroundings. And if you pay more attention to your surroundings, you have better odds of not placing yourself in a stupid position where you're going to get hurt. Make sense?
Question.
I'm not the moderator.
Does it have something to do with what we're talking about?
It absolutely
Okay.
does. It's actually right what he's talking about.
Okay.
Wouldn't a person that's carrying, though, give off an air, the body language?
Nope.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes, yes. It depends. Are you walking around in 5'11" cargo pants and a black polo shirt with your high and tight haircut and your photographer vest with your Benchmade knives clipped to your pockets? Then yeah, you give off the vibe. My wife, you would never think she's packing a gun.
And that's the kind of thing criminals can pick up on too, because that's how off-duty cops dress. And I've seen Secret Service guys dressed like that. We were laughing because, oh yeah, there's really secret over there with their 5'11" cargo pants and their Oakleys.
We call it tactical chic. I'm serious, and I think I use that in fiction. I use that in the Monster Hunter series because the guys from the company I'm writing about tend to dress like normal people. They're wearing t-shirts, jeans, khakis, and just normal people clothes, right? And then the guys they get in a big fight with, they're the guys with the high and tight haircuts and black polo shirts and cargo pants.
And after the panel, we might tell you guys a true story of how that came.
That is actually based on a true story of me and Mike Kupari at a buffet in Las Vegas. Yeah, the beginning of Las Vegas. Yeah, it is.
This
That
is not suitable for YouTube land, you say?
Yes, that is not suitable for YouTube land.
Let's rolling on.
Rolling on. As we said, don't get in fights. It's bad.
Yeah. Okay, so the physical action of firing a gun, I don't know how many people here have fired a gun. I'm assuming several of them have.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Once or twice.
But I mean, in the audience. So can you go through what that is actually like?
Well, real fast for the audience, raise your hand if you have. Okay, who in here thinks that they have a little bit of experience with the gun? You're familiar with them. You've shot one. Raise your hand. Okay. Who in here is a gun nut? Bona fide gun nut.
Has anyone in here never used a firearm before?
Okay.
Oh, we got a few.
All right. Okay. Let's. First thing you need to realize for fictional purposes is guns are loud. Guns are extremely loud. It's not like TV where you can have a conversation while people are touching off guns right next to your head. They're very loud and they will cause permanent hearing damage. Now, under the effects of adrenaline, you will not notice as much at the time. But afterwards, when you got that ringing in your ear, that is this little cilia in your ear dying.
There is one TV show that gets that right. It's Archer.
Actually, yeah.
Mop. That's how it is. There's a loud.
Lana! Yeah.
Yeah. So the guns are loud. The recoil of firearms depends greatly on the type of firearm and your experience level. A person who's experienced with a firearm can handle more recoil than a novice. So recoil isn't really a factor unless it's someone who's a novice using a firearm that's too much recoil for them, it's too big for them, or they just don't know how to use it. That's
How many of you have seen that YouTube video where they show the women firing a shotgun and then show the women firing an AR-15? Look that up because it is hilarious.
The loudest first thing that gets you, especially indoors, if you're in like a concrete parking garage or a concrete building or a mud building in Afghanistan, it is brutal.
Muzzle blast. It's basically the expanding gases coming out the muzzle. And if you're indoors where it's ricocheting off the ceiling and the walls around you, it's really deafening. I know Mike has laughed at me for many years because of my deafness, but part of my deafness...
Contributed to that deafness, but...
Yeah, well, you did. Yes, you did.
You took your earphones off.
Well, I thought you were done. No, I was talking about that concrete built basement in Logan. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, 30 rounds of an AR with little earplugs in a concrete basement in like 2 seconds is very loud.
I've been around a lot of explosions too, so...
Yeah, he's completely freaking deaf.
They said my hearing is fine.
What? No, we're both actually pretty messed up. I have bad tinnitus. Protect your hearing. But muzzle blast, it will cause you to flinch because it hits walls and the ceiling and it bounces kind of back. And basically, you have a human reaction. Anytime air hits your face, you go like this. And that's something that somebody who's trained in practice, they're going to overcome the flinch. People who are novices, they're inexperienced, they're going to flinch badly, and flinching is going to cause you to miss your follow-up shots because you're going to be going like this.
And if people are shooting next to you, then you might not be ready for it. If you're in a room and you're actually firing with somebody, you could have hot brass hitting you from the
very distracting.
Ejected cartridge cases hitting you, and there's all kinds of things that could just be distracting.
Well, running joke for firearms instructor is let me show you the dance of my people. Because that's when the brass goes down your shirt or your vest or whatever, and you're trying to keep your gun in a safe direction. Is it going down your shirt into your underpants.
This is why I chuckle whenever I see women saying, "Oh yes, I'll just like put on a bikini and go to the range."
Oh yeah, ladies, don't do the low-cut shirts for the range. I mean, I know you think you look good in that, we all agree, but that is not pleasant, okay? You don't want to do that. The other one that's really painful is you get a piece of brass falls and it sticks inside your safety glasses next to your head. That sucks.
The hot brass kiss always gives you a hickey, so.
It does. But here's the thing, you get used to this kind of thing, and after a couple years of teaching the range, you're just like, oh, there's a piece of hot brass down my shirt. I'm getting a small 3rd-degree burn.
Another thing that can come up, especially if you're firing a lot, is the guns get hot. Even handguns like revolvers and semi-automatic pistols get hot to the touch. A machine gun can get so hot the barrel will take your skin off if you touch it, which is why they have handles for removing the barrel, and before that they used to have asbestos mittens in the gunner's kit for changing the barrel out. So,
yeah, heat's one people forget. In the movies you always see suppressors. You guys, I used to sell those, and you heard them referred to as silencers. Silencer is actually a brand name. They're called suppressors. Sound suppressors are one of those. They get extremely hot. What they're doing is they're capturing all that expanded gas that would normally be noise, and they trap them as heat. It's like touch the muffler on your car. Okay, you will leave skin. That's how suppressors are. You can, after just a few magazines, you can, out of a rifle, you can place it down and set the seats of your truck on fire if you're not paying attention. That's how hot suppressors get. Gun barrels, you can burn the crap out of yourself on a gun barrel. And it doesn't take that many rounds to get it hot enough to actually burn yourself. So, so a note on suppressors, they're not,
you don't do that.
okay, it depends on the caliber of the gun and the type of the suppressor, but honestly, they're actually fairly quiet, but they're not TV quiet. 22s can actually get TV quiet. A 22, you can get it down to where it's just most of the action cycling is most of the noise you hear, and the actual impact of the bullet against the target's louder than the gun. Centerfire pistols, a 9mm, what the best way to describe it is take a heavy dictionary.
I'm sorry. Definition of centerfire versus why is it different than a 22?
22 is a very small cartridge. It's rimfire. I won't get too into handgun 101, but a 22 suck for shooting people. Okay, that movie that talks about how the 22 enters your head and bounces around and scram. That's bullcrap. All right, that's not what 22s do. They poke a small hole and it will go maybe 6 inches. If it hits the bone, it will probably ricochet off and stop. Okay, 22 suck for shooting people, and rimfire sucks because it's not reliable. We use 22 because it's cheap to shoot. But on suppressors, a 9mm, very common pistol cartridge, suppressed 9mm. Take a big, large dictionary, close it real hard. It's kind of a woof. That's about what it sounds like. It's just a boof.
That's a suppressed, full-powered rifle. You're still going to have a sonic crack as the bullet exceeds the sound barrier leaving the muzzle.
But it's actually louder to you being shot at
Yeah.
than the person shooting it. When you're
So-
shooting it, it just sounds like chuff.
If you have a
I'm
high-powered
gonna point
rifle,
out, suppressors are required equipment in some countries as a matter of courtesy to those around you, not because it makes it silent, but because your neighbors don't like, your 20 miles away neighbors don't like that loud rifle crack.
Well, as a guy with tinnitus, I think suppressors are wonderful.
Yeah.
I had tinnitus before I started shooting, so yes.
The bullet as it goes past you, if it's a subsonic bullet going slower than the speed of sound, it sounds like an angry bee. All right, they all sound different, but it's like brrr. All right, but centerfire rifle sounds or a more powerful round going faster is pretty distinct. And
there's a snap like the crack of a whip, and as it goes past you, you hear that. And it's hard to describe, but once you hear it, there's no mistake. You know immediately what it is. So
yeah, and it will actually cause, if it's close enough to you, you'll feel it. I mean, you'll feel it in the air. Or if it comes over something metal, you'll actually hear it echo. Like it'll vibrate over a car roof. If that makes sense. I'm trying to think. Okay, so I have a suppressed 5.56, so it's 223. Like an M4 carbine. The most common centerfire rifle cartridge in America. When you're shooting it, honestly, to me, it sounds like chuff. So when we wrote Dead 6, I had one of the guys had a suppressed rifle, and so every time you shoot, it was chuff, chuff, chuff. That's really what it sounds like. They get dirty though. They spit a lot of extra carbon back into the action, so they get really nasty very, very fast. That's kind of the downside.
Okay.
You get carbon all over you.
Well, we've pretty much already gone over like my last question that I have on
Oh,
here.
we'll go nuts, Jim.
Okay, so what are other common mistakes that you see in fiction?
Do a little bit of research on the actual gun you don't need to do oodles and, okay, I went too much gun nut stuff in Monster Hunter International, but keep in mind, that's because I originally self-published it on an internet gun forum. So I was giving, it was fan service, I was giving my fans what they want. So I have several sections where it's a paragraph of gun porn. Now, honestly, you guys don't need to do that.
The average reader is just going to gloss that over because it's not, just like you're not going to get into in-depth about the transmission on their Audi or all the other little details, because if you're shooting for a wide audience, see what I did there, shooting for if you're aiming for a wide audience, I did it again.
Let's not assault the
The goal
audience.
is to reach a large audience.
If your goal is to reach a large audience, thank you, Toad. You don't want to get too wrapped around the axle over the little details of whatever specific thing you think is cool. Because you think is cool doesn't mean everyone else is. That's just a general writing tip, but applies for a lot of
But
people.
you can make it cool.
Yeah. No, I do put more than average in the rest of the books, which I actually sometimes get gun nuts love. People who aren't gun nuts either tend to be like, okay, it's like reading a Tom Clancy novel where you start, I don't really care that much how a submarine screw works, so I start to skim. But the way Tom Clancy writes, it's actually fascinating, so a lot of people are like, ooh, that's really cool. So it's kind of a balancing act of how much you want to put in. Basically, the goal is, if they start to skim, and they get bored and they skim, that's too much. But think about your target audience, and I like my target audience. Give you an idea, I had the best-selling book in Afghanistan, Iraq. I was a Bagram, Baghdad, and the USS Ronald Reagan at the same time. I had the best-selling book. That gives you an idea about my audience. So they're like, yeah, gun nuttery. I want to know what kind of plastic stock you have on that gun.
Now, if you're writing something,
I feel the need to qualify. Larry's gun porn is not talking about a lady carefully taking apart the gun and oiling the stock. No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
describing
clarified
actual
gun porn.
weapons and describing how they function and.
if you want to find that other kind, use Google.
That's not what this panel is about. That panel is after the call
If
is
you're
over.
writing something set, is anyone here looking at writing or doing a work set in a historical time period? Okay. Before the invention of what we call now called smokeless powder, which is not the same thing as cordite.
Oh gosh.
Cordite was an early smokeless powder. It is no longer in use. Black powder firearms, black powder is a lot smokier than smokeless powder. It makes a big puff of white smoke. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about differences between black and smokeless powder. Google or Wikipedia, and there's pages and pages on it.
Okay, cordite, it's a pet peeve of mine. I see our authors all the time. They talk about like they go into a room when there's been a shooting and they smell the cordite.
No, they don't.
Unless they were shot in 1908 in Britain by some dude with an Enfield. No, you're not smelling cordite. What happened is Raymond Chandler used that term, and it was already dated in 1934 when he used it. But it was still possible in 1934. Plus, he was a Gordon Highlander, so he knew what it smelled like.
Looking at the, if you want to get an example of this, look at a video of like a Civil War reenactment, because they're actually firing black powder, there's just no projectiles in their guns, right? That's where the fog of war comes from, because after a few volleys, the other sides can't even see each other.
It's rather literal fog.
Yes.
Just a quick comment that is direct to that, and that is Last of the Mohicans shows that. My military history professor actually assigned us that movie to show what it was like during the so-called fog of war, where you couldn't see a thing after people started firing.
Well, even with modern guns, they get smokier than people realize, but not so much do you notice outdoors. But indoors, it does build up pretty quick, especially depending on the volume of fire. If you're in an enclosed space and somebody's just rattling off with a belt fed, it does not take too long till that whole room is just kind of choked and miserable with carbon. You know, we have a thing for firearms instructors where we often talk about like the black boogers when you go home and you would blow your nose, and you would basically blow black carbon snot out of your head.
If you're unfortunate enough to be, shooting in a shitty indoor range with bad ventilation, and after a while it'll start to make your eyes water if it gets too bad. It's just like being in a smoky bar.
Yeah, I've got asthma, so I mean, if you're an asthmatic, you will know in short order how nasty it is. So yeah, that's one thing for the writing perspective. Is, I mean, you can actually smell and taste this in the air.
And for historical writing purposes, though, black powder firearms, especially as you get before cartridge firearms, when it was a muzzle loader, the manual of arms is very different than a modern firearm. But you can use that to your advantage in the story. because they take a long time to reload.
Definition of terms, manual of arms.
Oh, a manual of arms is just the motions you go through to manipulate, load, and operate the firearm, right? With a Civil War era rifle musket, they had like their ammunition together in like a little bag of some kind with the powder and the ball. And they would bite it off, pour a little bit of powder in the flash pan, pour the rest down the muzzle, take the ramrod off of the rifle, which is a long stick the length of the barrel, jam it down the barrel to load it, cock the hammer, and then fire. And it takes longer to do if you're not practiced, it took me to say it.
The whole thing is a safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually somebody who's really good could be pretty dang fast with it, but the average person was pretty mediocre with it, and an inexperienced person sucked.
Which is why they had the Napoleonic era tactics of taking all their soldiers and lining them up and just volley firing at each other. Because the first volley would fire, then they'd take a knee, and then the second volley would fire while the first guys were reloading. And that's how they fought war.
And they weren't super accurate either, so they're just trying to maximize their weapons. So that's one thing too, is the tactics you're writing are going to be based upon what their tools are like. So if you had an American at that time period with a rifled, a weapon that was rifled and more accurate, and you practiced your whole life shooting deer and squirrels, then why the hell would you stand in the middle of the field doing volley fire? I'm going to go stand, I'm going to hide behind this tree and shoot you an extra 100 yards away.
Which is why Confederate sharpshooters gave Union soldiers a hell of a time in several Civil War battles.
I'm going to point out, that's the era the Gatling was invented for the reason that your average gun was crap for accuracy. Gatlings are not commonly used in infantry warfare anymore because we've got weapons that can actually like hit a target now.
Well, yeah, one of the things too is they had arguments between the rifling or rifled guns. Yes, they're more accurate, but we can load a smoothbore faster for volley fire. And so a lot of this was coming down to military doctrine and theory crafting versus guys on the ground. It's like, I want the accurate
From
gun.
your perspective as a writer, yeah, please go ahead.
I'm sorry.
To rewind to the Cordite for just a moment, what is a good acceptable sensory word?
Just call it powder. That's
Now,
what pretty much
nowadays it's
everybody
just
calls it.
gunpowder.
Yeah.
And I don't really know anybody who can tell. Well, I mean, maybe the guys that work at like ATK or whatever can tell the difference between gunpowder by smell. I'm not one of them. But
Thank you.
yeah, it all smells like gunpowder now.
Another thing is fully automatic fire, right? Individually used full auto weapons did not become common until after World War II. They were common in World War II as submachine guns. It's called a submachine gun because it fires a pistol cartridge versus a rifle cartridge, right? Now you have what they call assault rifles, which have a lesser powered rifle cartridge that can fire fully automatic from the shoulder. Full automatic fire in a rifle is not that useful. After World War II, from experiences in those big street battles in like Stalingrad and Berlin, it was thought at the time in the post-war era that that would be the way to go, volume of fire in firefights. As doctrine shifted post-Vietnam, they went back to wanting more accuracy. A fully automatic weapon fired from the shoulder is hard to control, even if you're experienced, because with each time the action cycles, it kicks back, it kicks up a little bit, and up and up and up. It's not like playing Modern Warfare, you just hold down the fire trigger and you just get a nice little cone of fire.
Well, honestly, like training, we've done a lot of training with a lot of people who are pretty damn good. And I'm really good with the full auto. Now, one thing is I'm a big dude. I had a good technique and I just leaned into it. I was kind of an artist with a couple of them. That said, if I was getting into a gunfight, I would never use it. It's rapid aim semi-automatic. So basically it's aim, shoot, aim, shoot, aim, shoot, aim, shoot.
But that depends on the doctrine and the training of the people in your story. If they're fighting like, an insurgent group in Africa, those guys don't know any better. They're going to do the Iraqi offhand shooting position and just dump magazines.
I knew a guy that was, he was a contractor in Iraq, and they were doing security work, and he had Sri Lankan soldiers working for him, and he had Congolese soldiers working for him. And he loved the Sri Lankans because one guy would it's funny because every day he would kill something because he made a promise to his god that every day he would kill something, and because of that he was a great warrior. So if at the end of the day he hadn't killed anything, he'd shoot a goat. He'd shoot an eagle. Okay? Because he told his god he would. He said those guys were amazing. Then he had his Congolese where the plan was, all right, you guys are going to run away anyway, but if you can at least flip your selector to full auto, dump a magazine in the direction of the bad guys as you run away. I mean, but seriously, that was because that was the level of professionalism of the soldiers that he had to work with. So it's going to come down to a thing of what is the skill level, knowledge, ability, commitment of the people, that's going to determine how they fight.
Excellent resource for the research purpose, especially if you're writing something with a military setting. There's a YouTube channel called like Funker 350 or something like that. It's video, there's helmet cam and camera film from Afghanistan, from the conflicts in Africa. It's all current, and it shows you what the guys on the ground are doing. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse, but it shows you what's going on today. You can also look at archival footage from Vietnam, from Korea, and from World War II, even as far back as World War I, if you can find it. And you can find a lot of this just by a simple internet search to see how people did things back then, because not only did the weapons evolve over time, the tactics and the manipulation of the weapons evolve as well.
Well, like military tactics are going to be dramatically different than police tactics. They're going to be dramatically different than just you get into a gunfight. Drug lords. Oh my gosh, if you're writing a fight scene between drug lords, it's going to be way different. Depends though, because if you're in Mexico, they're going to have Zetas that are full-on Mexican Green Berets. Okay, so it's going to depend dramatically on how they do it.
When doing drug battles, how accurate was that amazing shootout in The Wire?
The Wire. I watched all The Wire. What was I'm trying to remember?
It was the one where everybody was sort of shooting and you couldn't really tell what was going on and people freaked out and left. And it turned out that actually nobody got hit except for a kid who had nothing to do with the battle.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. When they tried to take the guy he tried to. Oh yeah, I love The Wire. When they tried to take down Marlowe's guys, and the dude with the shotgun.
Yes.
Was always whistling. What was his name?
That was Omar.
Omar! Yeah, I love that show.
I named my cat after
Yes, that's actually Baltimore.
Go hometown. American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan use the term death blossom to describe some of their local national counterparts, because poorly trained Iraqi and especially Afghan National Army units, when they take fire from somewhere, they wouldn't know where it's coming from. So they would just start firing in every direction. And if you happen to be in that direction, I actually had a soldier one time, I got shot at by, I think it was the Taliban, I don't know, I didn't see. So I'm looking through the scope of my M4 trying to see where this shot came from, and this army guy, because he's got to laugh at the Air Force guy all gung-ho, he's like, tugs on my sleeves, like, dude, sit down before the ANA shoots an RPG at us. He just took the wind right out of my sails. So I just sat down by the mud wall and pouted until the gunfight was over. Because it wasn't a gunfight, it was one or two guys popping off a couple of shots and running away, which is how things went in my AO. Now you get down to Helmand Province where my buddy was, that was ambushes, that was a planned ambushes starting with an IED and then coordinated fire.
Definitions of terms, AO, IED.
Oh my goodness.
Area of operation.
IED is an improvised explosives device. If anybody wants to know about those, I'm not going to tell you anything, but you can find plenty on the internet.
His job was to make those not.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure viewers in YouTube land get the...
You've talked about historical. What if you're trying to go futuristic?
Oh yeah, that's
Beta
good.
readers and resources, because you don't want like laser
We've had a
magic
lot
weapons.
of discussions about that, because there's a lot of ways that can go. We don't know how it's going to go yet, so basically it comes down to rule of whatever you think is awesome, but use some common sense on it.
The firearms technology is kind of plateaued right now. Like the guns we use now have been in use for decades. The optics, the sights, and the attachments are evolving still, but the actual function of the firearm is the same. The brass-cased metallic cartridge has been around since the 1860s. It's been refined, but it's still there. Eventually there's going to be a plateau. Right now they're looking at plastic-cased bullets to save weight. They've experimented with what they call a caseless bullet, where you just have a solid propellant wrapped around the bullet, and there's no ejecting case at all.
Problem we ran into that was there was no heat sink, because the case actually sucks a lot of the heat out of the weapon.
That's a bigger technical problem. The Army is working on both right now. And then you have the potential, there are laser weapons being developed now. Right now they're big because of power requirements.
Well, the Navy's working on functional rail guns, but again, you need a power plant to run.
And you also need like superconductors to build a rail gun,
So, I don't know if anyone else on this panel has a 3D printer or has played with it and shotgun shells and things like that, but I'm going to point out, gun control has serious problems because of 3D printing, and it has for many years been very true that if you have simple machine tools, you can make a gun and you can make cartridges and bullets. With a 3D printer, you can print a shotgun shell. You can load it with pennies and a basic explosive, and you can go out there and
for improvised weapons, the good thing on that, you can do a search for improvised weapons, insurgent weapons, because there are many places in the crime-plagued ghettos of the third world and in countries of strict gun control, and even against occupying forces in World War II and later, insurgent forces would make their own firearms.
Sten guns. The British built millions of Sten guns out of plumbing supplies.
You know, it's just
And they're a
stamped
crappy
steel.
submachine gun. They're a terrible gun. But they work pretty good. And they're really good for shooting somebody and taking their better
The
gun.
American, we dropped
Deer guns.
a single shot
Liberator.
shotgun into the Philippines where you'd actually have to take the barrel off, load a shell in, twist it back in, and then you could pull it to fire.
Oh, the trombone gun.
Yeah, but it was a crude weapon, but it was good enough to kill a Japanese soldier and take his rifle.
And we had Liberators that basically they were designed where we called it the Liberators, this horrible piece of crap that we could make for basically the equivalent now, they'd be like $5 each, right? And we'd crank out barrels of these things to drop over occupied
They
territory.
had a single 45 ACP bullet.
Yep, and also there was no extractor or ejector, so the idea was that you would run a pencil down the barrel after you fired it to knock the cartridge case out. Because the plan was, if you're having to shoot your Liberator more than once, you have problems, because you're supposed to go up to the dude with the Mauser. Thank you for the Mauser. That was the idea.
For future,
Updated version of the Liberator is the deer gun. There's actually a really excellent Wikipedia article on it.
for future firearms technology, right now we don't know. If you're going to write energy weapons, do some research, because it's not going to be the slow-moving balls of light that travel about as fast as an arrow.
Yeah, that you can block with your lightsaber.
You know?
Also, keep in mind, throughout history, there's been a race between armor and weapons. There's always a race between armor and weapons. And you're always going to have that. And so no matter what weapon you have, someone's going to try to have armor that can beat it. And if armor gets too good, then they're going to change the weapons. And so with energy weapons, you're going to run into different types of armor. With projectile weapons, we've actually got some pretty good armor, but then you got the downsides of armor, which is the weight and the heat. And
I once read something somebody wrote where they had some kind of blaster energy guns, but they were slow to charge and they would overheat. So if they overheated or they needed to recharge, they would pull out a sword because they wanted to write
Deathstalker.
sword combat, right? Well, what you could do, instead of when the guy pulls out a sword, you could pull out a 19th century revolver and shoot him in the face.
Well, no, those weapons were actually illegal in that universe.
If you're going to do something like that, at least do a good job justifying
Or
it.
pull out a
Yes.
second gun.
well, like Dune, that's where they had the energy shields so they could have knife fights. You know, it's basically that. Why did they have energy shields to do knife fights? There you go.
But they were cool, to be fair.
Yeah, so it's rule of cool. Basically,
cool,
you
yeah.
can do whatever you want.
Somebody in the back who
Yeah, go ahead.
How bloody do gunfights get in comparison with like sword fights, knife fights, that sort of thing? For purposes of writing fiction.
All right, guys, let me make a comment on that. I took a. I think you did too. We took
I didn't take that.
Okay, so I took it's called a wound ballistics class, taught by a guy from Homeland Security, and it was 8 hours of looking at autopsy photos. And so we started out with pistols, and then we went on to, and then we went crime scene photos and that kind of thing. We went on to rifles. So pistols, oh man. Rifles, oh gosh. Shotguns, oh! And we did that after lunch.
Now, it's not like, with that said, it's not like a Tarantino film where somebody gets hit with a shotgun and there's this big splash. and
Guns
straight up
don't
blood.
pick you up and throw you. That's one thing you get wrong. Okay, physics. Every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I hit you with a bullet powerful enough to lift your body and hurl it back through the window, do a flip and catch on fire, okay? As much as I love the movie Last Man Standing, all right, you're not going to do that. It does not happen. You would have to hit him with a tank gun, okay? Because anything that's powerful enough to lift a guy up, it'd be powerful enough on recoil to throw the shooter through the
I
air.
actually always wondered if you could do that with a gyrock.
Oh, with a rocket pistol?
Yeah.
Theoretically could, because it's about explosive payload as opposed to, but we're getting way beyond
Anyway,
that.
I'm sorry.
I just had one thing on explosions, because that was kind of my deal for a while. And explosions in movies just drive me crazy. Modern explosives do not make a big fireball. There is a small flash and more dust or smoke than there is actual fireball. The reason you go to an air show and there's a big fireball is because the EOD guys go put jellied gasoline and det cord to make that happen for the air show, right? So unless there's a pyrotechnic involved, there's not going to be the big fireball. Yes, go ahead.
Well, it was in relation to the not going to pick you up and throw you back through the air. One thing that I've always found frustrating about movies and stuff with guns in the past, like lead balls, when you were shooting literally a ball of lead at someone, is that when they get shot, it's kind of like getting shot with a bullet now where it goes through you and you fall over. But I always thought that, hey, if you're getting hit by a ball of metal this big, you're probably not just going to fall
Well, let me explain
over.
the main thing about, okay, so, all right, the faster the cartridge is going, the more destructive it's going to be. With pistol rounds, they're basically going to poke a hole in you. That's what pistol rounds do, because they're going fairly slow. This is a generalization, because there's some that aren't like this. That's why most pistol rounds are designed as hollow points, because if they're going to poke a hole, you want them to expand and make a bigger hole. The more blood that comes out, the more likely they're going to stop. Another thing, too, look up human biology. In real life, people don't have hit points, they have blood pressure, okay? There is no good place to get shot. It all sucks.
It just, so for a while, it was in vogue for like the supposed experts to have like a one-shot stop percentage. It's nonsense.
It's garbage.
It doesn't.
Garbage.
There's so many factors. Where do you get hit? What is the angle of the bullet? What is depth of penetration? How big is the person? What is their constitution? A guy who's hopped up on adrenaline or on some kind of substance can get shot over and over again and not even realize he's dying until he dies. On the other hand, sometimes a guy will get shot with a small caliber round and just fall over dead.
Now, on the big projectiles, rifle bullets that are going faster, they tend to be a lot more destructive because they got all this extra energy, and what happens is they tend to not just poke a hole, but the bullet's going to tend to either fragment or tumble, which is now causing a bigger hole. If it hits a bone, it's going to probably fragment further, and the bone's going to fragment, and that's what's going to give you called secondary fragmentation, which is going to cause all these other secondary wound channels through the body, all of which are going to bleed.
Look up videos of guys hunting. There are plenty of hunting videos out there. Those are guys shooting large animals with high-powered rifles. I mean, a deer will get hit with a 30-06 and run 200 yards before it falls over dead. Other times they'll hit the deer with 30-06 and it will drop dead on the spot.
And also when you clean that deer, who shot the deer? Okay, so you know when you clean the deer, there's the area around the bullet hole that we call the blood-soaked meat that you cut off and throw away. What you've had there is that rifle bullet is so powerful and going so fast that it's actually destroying tissue around the hole and not just the hole.
Think of it as throwing like a rock into a pool of water, because the human body is very fluid, right? The bigger the rock, the blunter the rock, and the faster it's going, the bigger splash you're going to make. Well, the splash in your body is bad. That's bad for you.
Now, most of your organs are fairly elastic, so that the hydrostatic shock usually isn't necessarily fatal, but it depends all, like, once again, on where you get hit. And the liver, that's bad. Okay, heart, lungs, it's bad.
A liver shot won't drop you right away, but sooner or later, if you have a gunshot, if you're not treated, you're going to die.
Blood pressure loss is usually what stops most people in a violent
I
encounter.
feel a need for qualification on what you said.
Yes.
There are actual cases of people getting, say, shot in the head, finding out 15 years later they got shot in the head, and having the bullet still lodged there.
There was a soldier, I think it was in D-Day in World War II, he got shot between the eyes with a round from a German machine gun. It went right between both lobes of his brain, out the back of his head, and the bullet was so sufficiently far away from the gun that it was moving slow enough where it didn't scramble his brains. He survived and he recovered.
A really common wound in the inner city emergency rooms is the shot in the face with a small caliber pistol round. Doesn't penetrate the bones, travels around underneath the skin and lodges in the fleshy part of the base of your neck. So it all depends.
The frontal lobe of the human skull is very thick. A small power handgun.
You actually want to shoot them in the triangle of the eyes to the ears to the nose. That's the best place to shoot somebody in the face.
Yes, we have a question.
That's true.
You in the back.
Me?
No, behind you. I'll get you next.
So I just wanted to follow up with, blasting people back. I understand that they're technically illegal, but fragmenting rounds?
No, they're not technically.
That's not going to blow someone back, but that's going to deal a lot more damage to someone
yes.
when you shoot them.
But basically, you're poking. Bullet's going to poke a hole. Anything that fragments is just going to poke more holes. More holes means more things to bleed.
All it means is the copper jacket over the lead bullet comes apart in little pieces. There's no like explosive or anything in there. They're not illegal. They're not necessarily illegal to hunt with, depending on your jurisdiction. But a lot of bullets will do that.
Now, there are explosive rounds, like we were shooting a 50 cal Rothfuss rounds one time. Were you there when we almost blew our heads off?
Yeah, that was
Oh, never mind. This is a hypothetical situation that never occurred.
Yes, you got a question. Yes.
Ideal common handgun for puncturing bone.
For bone?
None.
Well, I mean,
I used to have my pistol class right on the board. All handguns suck.
what are you? Okay, what hypothetically is your protagonist shooting with this gun?
Chest.
No. What kind? Is it like a human or is it an
Human.
animal? You're gonna get 18,000 pages of argue on the internet.
I'm just going to say 1911.
The goal is not necessarily to penetrate bone, okay?
Right.
Oh, we're out of time? All handguns suck against bone.
Yep. Okay. We are out of time. Thank you for coming.